My dear brothers and sisters, sisters and brothers, I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, but I am happy to be able to share this little time with you and to share with you some thoughts on the Oblate path as we are following it today and the importance of this path, not only for ourselves and for the WCCM, but also for the world. I'm in New York City at the moment, and I've had a busy uh, recent time visiting our community in Canada, in Montreal, Toronto, and then the National Conference on the Environment in Vancouver. Then I came down to Indiana in the States for the John Main seminar, which was on the theme of widening your tents, led by one of our meditators and the patron of the community in the Caribbean, um, Archbishop Jason Gordon. And it was a beautiful opening of the mind and heart to the gift of synodality, walking the way together, which is what synodal means. And the importance of this that is being played out in the Catholic Church at the moment through the inspiration of Pope Francis, getting people to enter into a conversation in the spirit. And we did this little exercise in this for a couple of days of the seminar, reflecting on the future of the WCCM. And it was very enlightening to realize that the people that you're sitting around this table with, some of them holding opinions that are different from yours or very different styles and personalities, but just the act of listening, respecting their point of view and honoring their presence and their sincerity, and that itself awakens another dimension of reality for us, the dimension of the spirit. And it brought me to a deeper insight into the wisdom of the rule of Benedict, where, as you remember, when he says the abbot should call the whole community together for important decisions, and in that gathering, listen to everybody, especially the young, because the Lord often reveals what is best to the young. And I think it's this understanding of the unity of humanity, even with our differences, even with our strong oppositions to each other on certain issues, that unity is unbreakable. That is the fundamental truth about humanity, is that participation in the unity of the divine love. And at the end of these reflections, I'd like to show you a picture of the beautiful, perhaps the most famous of all icons, Rubyev's Trinity, and just give you a time to be able to gaze upon it. And that's what we do with icons. We just gaze upon them with a few reflections about how this symbol of the Trinity is at the heart of our Benedictine vision of life. And it is a conversation that we are engaged upon. St. Benedict uses the word conversatio not to mean just having a talk with other people, but he actually uses it to mean a way of life, how we actually live. So conversatio morum suggests a changing of the way of our habits and of our prejudices and of the grooves that we get into, which need to be subjected to the power of metanoia, so we can be free from our conditioning, free from our fears, free from our prejudices, and we can rise into the glorious liberty of the children of God. This is at the heart of St. Benedict's well of wisdom for us, and something that is of great importance for our world. And it's not just a matter of talking about it. We have to live it. We have to show as a community with all our diversity, this experience of unity. So this is what I'd like to share with you about, and hope that it will help this time of retreat and being together. There's a story in the Desert Fathers that you may remember where an old monk says, the day is coming when the world will go mad. And then when the people see someone who is not mad, they will point at them and say, they are mad because they are not like us. And I love New York. I love the chaos of it and the friendliness of it, the diversity of human existence, of human personality, the racial mixture. I don't say I'd like to spend my whole life here, but I have spent a whole year here once as a young man. But I love that diversity and energy. At the same time, you see great friendliness as well as great suffering, and a certain craziness, a certain madness. But there are different kinds of madness. There's the madness of that we see in the political world today, a madness based upon cruelty, upon the suppression of the human, upon fear, upon manipulation, upon lies. That is the madness that we have to confront with the sanity, with the health of body, mind, and spirit of Saint Benedict. And that's why the Oblate path is of such testimonial value to the world today. We don't have to convince people about it. We just have to live it and let it have its influence. So people may say, what is this silly Oblate path that they're following? It's a bit ancient, it's a bit antiquarian. But for us who know what this path, this conversation in the spirit is about, we realize that it is ever young. It is not an old-fashioned approach. It is a new way of living an ancient wisdom. And what is that way of wisdom that Saint Benedict offers us and the world today? First of all, it's a way of life infused with faith. It's a community of faith composed of people with different opinions, different beliefs. And it's this miracle of diversity and unity coming together. This is what we see in the Rubiev icon later. So this way of life that Saint Benedict says is for us to choose, but in a sense we are chosen in order to choose it, but we have to give our assent to it. It's not something we choose in the way that you choose a different brand, a different, temporary infatuation. But this is something that we recognize deep within ourselves as appealing to us individually, personally, uniquely, as a way to health and to wholeness and to happiness and to holiness. And this is something very clearly expressed in the prologue. The Lord addresses this call to each one of us standing in the crowd of a Times Square or the crowd of King's Cross. But we experience this unique recognition by God, inviting us to change our way of life and to live life in a new way. And why? He puts this in the form of a question. He says, do you want life? Not just an infinite extension of life, but the quality of consciousness that makes us alive, which is, of course, that quality of consciousness in which we participate in the mind and heart and love and friendship of Jesus, who leads us into this Trinitarian fullness of life, pleroma, the fullness of life. So do you want to be alive, or do you just want to be a consumer? Do you just want to be a complainer? Do you just want to be somebody who's hiding from the problems of life? Or do you want to be alive? This is the call that St. Benedict describes. And he says, if you do, then here is a way to follow it. And it's after that, it becomes very experiential, very simple, very, very straightforward. So this way of life infused with faith is lived in common. Now, as an Oblate community, most of us are not living in a physical community, but we are in the sense of a monastery with shared times of meditation and a common daily life. But we are living a common life through ourselves, through our communication with each other, and through that quality of unity that we experience in our daily meditation. The rule of St. Benedict describes how this common life can be lived by people who are living together, but it's full of all the necessary exceptions. So it's not a rule book. People often think of it as rules, but it's not a rule book. It's a path. It's a guided path into the fullness of life, but recognizing that everyone is unique and we must respect each other's uniqueness. This is what happens in a conversation when you listen to another person, when you don't interrupt them, when you give them time to express their opinion, even though it may annoy you when they express it. You give them time and space and respect to say who they are and what they believe. And that is the exception upon which the rule is made. And it's in this sense that the exception proves the rule. And if we don't have that quality of exceptionality, then the rule just becomes something rigid and legalistic and basically unchristian. And in that common life, we recognize very quickly that we are very different, and the people we are sharing this common life with, everyone has a different rate of growth or a different stage of growth. New members of the community, people who just take longer to really understand what that call to freedom and to the fullness of life is about. So there is this beautiful, rich diversity of Benedictine life, kind of a mini New York, in which all of this diversity is held together in a spirit, of course, of love. The practical way, secondly, this practical way in which we follow this way of life is by recognizing that each human being has in common with everybody else these qualities of the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. The spiritual not being so much a separate dimension, but the unifying, integrated, integral dimension in which body and mind, the physical and the mental, are harmonized. This is something we practice in meditation. And that's why the qualities of silence, stillness, and simplicity, the interior qualities of our growth interiorly, are expressed in the promises of Saint Benedict, or the vows of obedience, stability, and conversion. You can reflect on this together. How do these interior vows that we practice in meditation express themselves in these external promises of how we want to live in obedience, stability, and conversion? And this is also expressed in the daily life, in the pattern, the schedule of prayer, work, and study, or lexio. Reading, a very important part. The art of reading, which we have to recover in our world. We will spend our time looking at screens or YouTube to get our information. But the act of reading, called for Saint Benedict, is a primary importance for the development of this integrated consciousness. So prayer, work, and study, in which we punctuate the day with times for work, times for reading, times for prayer. The times for prayer are primary. Nothing must be preferred to the work of God. And in our daily life as oblates, living in families and in the world or traveling, this is something we have to face every day, maybe alone. We have to face this challenge. This is the time for meditation. Am I just going to skip it for today, just put my feet up, or am I going to respect and obey this interior law of harmony, which requires that I give this time to the work of God? And this is, although Benedict refers to the work of God in reference to the divine office, which is the outward punctuation of the day, I think it also refers to the inward work of God, which is our mantra and our poverty of spirit, our inner fidelity to silence, stillness, and simplicity. So punctuating the day gives us a way of sanctifying the day, allowing every day, whatever stress or problems or confusion it may bring, or busyness it may bring, it allows us to integrate all of this activity. Without that order, our lives in the modern world can just fall apart. And that's what you see. That's another kind of madness, when people have no way of harmonizing time in their daily lives, and they're just blown around by one stimulus after another. So the discipline, the heart of this, is the freeing, liberating discipline of the daily balance between prayer, work, and study. And this is where we really begin to rediscover Scripture itself as a well of wisdom. One of the great things that our Oblate community has done in recent times is to develop the Bombo Book of Prayer. I'm traveling with it. We used it at all the events that I've been involved in the last week or 2 weeks. And I'm very moved, and I feel very much at home as we follow the Bombo Book of Prayer, where we respect these minutes or times of silence in between the readings, so that we're not just running through it as if it was some kind of obligation or some kind of superficial activity, but we're really allowing the scriptures, the readings, to soak into us. You may use those times of silence for saying the mantra if it comes naturally, or to reflect on the reading that we've just heard. And then the beautiful simplified form of the office, which we have made to allow for a full period of meditation after the readings and before the Benedictus or the Magnificat and the closing section. But this balance of the office, I think, is a real gift to the world and a gift to us. And I think we need to make this Bombo Book of Prayer more easily available for people to use. So that's punctuating the day. And then just focusing in, thirdly, upon the meditation itself. I've been meeting people who are new to meditation or have been meditating for some time, but haven't quite moved to a deeper level of personal experience. Remember what Father John always says, You've got to know this in your own experience, not by reading it, by thinking about it, but through your own experience. And remember what he says. The 2 times of meditation a day are a minimum. This is the minimum we need to bring our time, our daily lives into this integral harmony of the Spirit. This is the great gift of Father John to our world. And he therefore became a direct link to the stream of wisdom that flows to us over the last 1500 years from the early Christian monastic movement, and which inspired Benedict, but which itself flows from the teaching of Jesus on prayer. We need to see ourselves as part of this stream, this flowing stream of wisdom, practical wisdom, this tradition that has enriched our lives, in which we pass on to others, person to person, but also as a community through the witness we make. So the oblate path is something of great relevance to our time, and I hope we will be able to find ways of showing others that it is an option. It's not esoteric. It's not something just antique, but it's for ordinary people who are seeking life in its fullness and who recognize the need for this discipline to be able to balance their lives, integrate the different dimensions of themselves, the physical, the mental, psychological, and the spiritual. And at the same time, to do this in a way in community where we respect the balance, the tension between diversity and unity. If we can show that in the smallest way and share it with others, we are making a real contribution to a world that has gone mad, and we can offer some true inspiration for it. So we need tension in our lives, necessary tension, because life is composed of many different elements, but not stress, not stress. And we need to show that this tension is something that we can live with creatively in community, in the wisdom of Benedict, putting that wisdom into practice in our daily lives. So I wanted to end with this beautiful, perhaps the most famous of all icons, the 15th century icon of the Trinity, and just ask you to gaze upon it. It was done nearly 1,000 years before, 900 years before St. Benedict, but I think it expresses beautifully these essential elements of the oblate path as we live it today. The Trinity is the model of community, of diversity and unity, with the deepest possible tension of love, creative and liberating and fruitful tension of love between the 3 persons. So the icon shows the 3 angels who visit Abraham, but it was very quickly recognized as a symbol of the Trinity, as the embodiment of unity and peace and harmony, everything that Benedict means by conversatio, the conversation we have with each other, with God, in this way of life. So on the left is the Father, and the Father is as it were self-sufficient. The Father is the source, the ever-present origin of the life of the Trinity, but they are contemporary. One does not produce the other, but they are in a dance. And so these 3 figures in this icon form a circle. Just take a moment to look at what they are. They are a circle, the great symbol of unity. And they all have identical faces. Just look at their faces. They are one and they are three. They all have blue in their dress. Blue is the color of heaven. But we also see the the brown, which represents earth. And this Trinity is not abstract. It is embodied in life as we, as human beings, live it. The green represents newness, new life, ever new. The spirit on the right-hand side touches the table, the altar. They're having a meal. Remember how often Benedict, how much importance he gives to the common meal as a symbol of the Eucharistic table. So the Spirit touches the table, earthing. Don't think of the Spirit as something abstract. The Spirit earths us in the same way as the incarnation grounds us in ourselves and in our human condition. And the Spirit draws our gaze towards Christ at the center, who is touching the table with his two fingers, blessing the table of life. So everything that I've been talking about in Benedict's view of the rule and the common life as a path to the fullness of life is expressed, I think, in this central symbol of the Christian imagination, the symbol of God as this communion, community of oneness of these three forces or these three persons held together and overflowing in love. So maybe take a moment now to just gaze upon this beautiful image and maybe share some reflections that you have on it. And I hope these thoughts have been of some value in this time of retreat and reflection that you're having. And I hold you in my heart as you follow this time together and look forward to welcoming you. I think we're working on a date for an Oblate retreat in Bonneau in the near future. So I look forward to welcoming you there and send you much love and a wonderful time of peace, of harmony, of diversity and unity together.